Hello, Joe from Sustain Nutrition here. Hope you are well. Today, I'm going to be discussing how to stop picking at food in front of you. So this is something that a lot of people struggle with. They feel like they've got a lot of willpower and resilience when they're in their own home, when they're in control. But as soon as the circumstances change, they struggle. When food is present, they then find it a lot more difficult and find themselves picking and overeating. And what I would say here before I start is that aim for progress, not perfection. I would say that me as an individual, I've been a coach for 11 years. I've run Sustain for over 7 years. I was at a networking event this week and there were some cookies on the side and I picked one up and ate it. That doesn't really matter because my weight is stable. My habits for the most part are in control. But if you're expecting to be perfect with this, then you're going to most likely be disappointed. And actually perseverance is key. And aiming for consistency first is going to make more sense than aiming for perfection. So some of the basics, make sure that you're eating enough food. So often people will snack and they'll pick up food in the evening because they've undereaten during the day. And so to start with, we're going to look at some of the physical things that you can do, some of the things that you probably already know, and then we'll look at some of the mindset tactics after that. So making sure that you've had sufficient food. And if you look over your food diary, and if you're not keeping a food diary, that's an excellent place to start. Because without doing that, you can't assess what's going on. What gets measured gets managed. And as soon as you start to record your food, you'll have more awareness. If the only veg you're eating is some onions in a curry or a side salad, some lettuce in a sandwich, then it becomes more obvious over time that you're not eating enough veg. Or if you're having some yogurt for breakfast, a salad for lunch or whatever, and then a protein source in the evening, you're not having enough protein. And I'll do another video at some point that covers the basic fundamental needs that you have. But for most people that I work with, when they first start, they're not eating enough nutritious food. They're picking and they're snacking and they're never really having many meals. And the meals they do have are often 200-300 calories. It's not enough food for an adult to function on. And for me, as someone who's got a big appetite, I can eat a lot of food. If I'm not having protein, veg, and slow release carbs consistently, then I'm picking more. And it's all well and good doing all the mindset tactics, which we'll cover in the second half of the video, but you're fighting a losing battle. You're trying to push a boulder uphill if you're not eating enough food. And so that's almost always the first place to start. It's very rare that I'll work with a client and they'll be eating sufficient nutritious food when they first start. Some people need 4 meals. I'm one of those people. I've got female clients who are exactly the same. And if they don't eat 4 meals, then they struggle and then they pick more. And often there's lots of different things you can look at when it comes to what makes for a meal. But the fundamentals I put together before, protein, veg, slow release carbs, is a great place to start. Might be slightly obvious, but it might not. People make these simple mistakes. Move, whether that be moving yourself away from the food or moving the food away from you. So often you hear about people picking at food because it's been left out, because they've given their kids a pack of crisps and they've left a few. If you know that your children don't eat a whole pack of crisps, then give them half a pack, wrap the other half up and put it away. If you're buying 100-gram bag of chocolate buttons for your family to share, maybe it's better if you buy single serves, whether that be the 20-gram, the 40-gram portions, whatever it may be. But find ways to make it easier for you to not pick. And obviously there's going to be times when you can't do this and you have to move yourself physically, and maybe you can't do that either. And that's when it comes to the mindset pieces. But it's trying to make this situation as effective as possible. And often people aren't helping themselves as much as they could, especially with the buying habits. One of the good examples that I used to fall foul of is you get 100 grams of chocolate for £1, or you could get 40 grams of chocolate for 60p. And I would consistently buy 100 grams of chocolate, but I never needed that much. And how much is it costing me? We're talking fractions of a pound, tiny amounts of money that you just don't need to be bothered about. Next up is looking at communication. This is one of the areas that a lot of people struggle with. They don't communicate their needs to other people. They make their life harder than it needs to be because they're choosing, unfortunately, to side with the fear they have around communication. It might be a fear of rejection. It might be a fear of arguments. It might just be difficult to express themselves because they've not done it. But if you're constantly going to the same place, and if the food is constantly a temptation, then this is something to bring up. Now, it might be the case that you can't control this, but how many times have you tried? How many times have you explained this to the people in your life, how important this is to you and the impact that it has? something that we often talk about is the depth of feeling that we get in our questionnaires. And I would question, when people give that level of information, have you given that to your loved ones? Have you explained to them how important this is? How much your health and your happiness hinges on your health and the way you look? Because for a lot of people, this is really, really important, but they very rarely communicate this to other people. They're too busy putting other people first, and it's impacting them negatively. And so, of course, there are situations where this can't be controlled. But have you fulfilled this as best you can? There's a saying in business, you have to tell people things 7 times for them to hear. So often people will say, I've told them that 3 times. Whereas instead they should look at it and say, I've said it 3 times. How can I say it 4 more different ways? And often my job as a coach is communicating in the right way so people hear it. If you keep saying the same things, it won't be heard. So it's trying to vary how you deliver this message so that it can be helped. So looking next at the things that you can do with regards to your mindset to help you stop picking at food. The first thing we're going to look at, point number 4, is the awareness of thoughts and feelings. Very often when people are picking at food, my example with the cookie is I wasn't thinking, and I was thinking subconsciously. I wasn't actively thinking about what I was doing. I wasn't aware of the feelings that I had at that moment in time. And if I look back at it, I was a little bit bored, I was a little bit tired, I was a little bit frustrated. And I'm seeing that food present and believing that that's going to fix it. And so that's a lesson that I can learn from. And by reflecting on it as part of my food log and talking about it with you now, that's me reflecting on those decisions. That then means that going forwards, I'm more likely to be aware of the thoughts and feelings by reflecting on it, by actively practicing being aware, by asking myself, what's going on right now? What am I thinking? What am I feeling? Why am I desiring this food? Because often, as soon as that's then verbalized or thought on, I'd fancy eating it because it's there. I fancy eating it because I'm bored. It's then much easier to pick apart. It's then much easier to challenge and say, okay, maybe that's not the right decision. Maybe that's not the right choice. But we can't challenge this without awareness. And the first thing to work on for a lot of people is just creating conscious thoughts and bringing their awareness to their feelings and what's going on in that moment. And again, having coached a lot of people, it's amazing how many people struggle with their feelings. You say to someone, what does that make you feel? And they say things like, I feel like nobody listens to me. That's not a feeling, that's an analysis of that situation. And so learning a broader spectrum of emotions can help change the way that you feel. If you're never a bit irked and you're always frustrated or furious, then you're more likely to feel worse. And so working on this and having a broader range of feelings can really help. Number 5, challenge your thoughts. So once you become aware of your thoughts, you can then start to question them. You can then look at them from another angle. So before I'd have been thinking, oh, cookie would be really nice. But the challenge to that is it worth going backwards from your goals for? And granted, it's only one cookie. Everything is either going to help push you towards your goals or take you from them. And so again, that's just a thought. Oh, it's only one cookie. Well, is that the attitude that I want to have? Should I be eating cookies because I'm frustrated? For me, that's not the right decision. It's entirely your decision what you do. But if you're watching this and you're 8.5 minutes in, this is obviously something that's relatively important to you. So practicing challenging your thoughts, looking at things from a different perspective, asking the right questions, rather than focusing on the thoughts that support your narrative. Oh, I've not had a Snickers in ages. I'd really like one. It's only 200 calories. I'll start again tomorrow. All of those thoughts are pushing you further down that track. And you can consciously control your thoughts. It doesn't often come easy for people because they've not practiced it, but you can focus on your goals. And if you've got clear goals, then this is then easier to do because you can draw back on that. If you write down your goals daily or weekly, it's going to be much easier for you to draw on that when you need. If you never do it, if you've never thought about it, if you've never taken 5 minutes to do it, then it's going to be harder for you to do. And that's why these tasks are so important. And that's why it's something that's included in the free fat loss tracker I put together, which I'll mention to you shortly. The last point, number 6, recognize thoughts for what they are. That thought that I had of I'd really like a cookie is just a thought. And what is a thought? It's just a passing piece of information, a passing voice, a passing image in my mind that I can choose to let go. We have hundreds of thousands of thoughts there. I think it's 80,000 thoughts we're meant to have a day. This is just one of those. And whilst it might feel like you have 80,000 thoughts about food, that would show you how many of these that you do ignore, how many of them you do get past. Thoughts aren't facts. You don't have to act on them. These are things that are just created in your mind. I imagine you have 101 thoughts that you ignore every day. I'd love a lion. I'd love to tell that person to, I'm not going to swear, to go away, to tell someone else to shut up, to yell at your kids. All these impulses that we have that you ignore, that you recognize for what they are, that they'll be detrimental to you and they won't serve you. That's what you need to do with food. And so people already have that skill. They're already able to do this. They just aren't applying it to their food yet because they're not aware of it. They're looking at this as something completely different. But as soon as we're able to calm down and recognize these thoughts for what they are, then we can tackle it. So if we look at picking at food, it's being able to calm yourself down to think, do I really need this? Is this a legitimate thought that I want to act on? And I've been using this more and more recently. I've explained in videos before about how in October 2022, I read a book and it changed the way that I looked at life and my thoughts. And now when I'm craving, I ask myself, is this a thought that you want to continue having? Of course not. I don't want to crave high calorie food. I want to be lean and confident and happy. And so do I want to continue craving? Well, no. So where do I want to focus instead? And for me, it's often reading or watching Netflix. And so I will then go and do those things. I'll recognize that thoughts are created in my mind and it's just a thought. I can let it go whenever I see fit. And whilst that might sound a bit woo-woo, a bit wacky, a bit out there, there's some real power in this stuff, because that's what, if you look at people who are able to moderate food or people who easily turn down food, that's what they're doing. They look at it and go, that doesn't mean anything to me. At the moment, for people who are struggling with picking at their food or struggling with their weight, it's because they've got all this attachment to these thoughts. You've not got a real attachment to chocolate cake. That's something that's created in your mind. And the sooner that you recognize that is the sooner that you can leave it, the sooner you can make more progress going forwards. If you'd like more information, then you can join our free fat loss support group on Facebook. There's a link. If you're watching this on YouTube, then there'll be a link in the description. And then if you'd also like access to the free fat loss tracker that I've created, then you can click the link and download it from there. There's ways to track your positives, your food, your weight. There's some goal setting stuff in there too. I'm adding to it all the time. Thank you very much.